no such thing as goodness. One cannot be better if there's no such thing as good, better, best, right? So today what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about certain things like that, but I'm going to start off by saying this. This is something very important. Okay, first of all, here it is. What is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires. What is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires. What is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires. What did I just say, Noah?
Well, today begins a matter of academic speculation.
No. What is today a matter of academic speculation?
What is today a matter of academic speculation?
Begins tomorrow.
Begins tomorrow.
To move armies.
To move armies.
And pull down empires.
Pull down empires.
What do I mean by that? What I tell you in this class will have an effect a long time from now, perhaps. The things you take into your mind will have an effect somewhere down the road. It will come down. It cannot just lie dormant. If you accept certain propositions, academic propositions, to be true, you will act upon them. And if you act upon them, there are consequences to them, be it good or bad. What is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires. A 30-something page paper called the Communist Manifesto has destroyed nation after nation after nation and killed tens and hundreds of millions of people. Academic speculation as to what the good society is. Two philosophers, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, have blood on their hands, even though they have never pulled a trigger to do so. They used the pen. Their ideas killed people because their ideas have motivated people to act. Is communism dead? Marxism is absolutely not dead. Where's Marxism finding its place right now? Marxism is in China. Marxism is in Cuba. Marxism is in America. What major groups are promoting Marxism right now? Two, Black Lives Matter and Antifa are Marxist organizations. Anytime you hear rich versus poor, anytime you hear this idea of take from the rich, redistribute to the poor, that's Marxism, guys. That's Marxism. Anytime you start talking about collectivism, breaking things up into their types of people, that is, their groups, you are no longer an individual, you're a group. That's Marxism. America was founded on individuals. We result in a group based on our individual triumphs, which results in the group triumphing. This idea of equality of outcome is Marxism. Did you catch that? Equality of outcome is Marxism. That is communism. Have you heard of the cancel culture? That's Marxists doing it. Okay? Social engineering, Marxism. This idea that we can construct a culture, a civilization, where everybody has the same outcome is Marxism. The only way you do that is not by making everybody rich, which is impossible. You can only do that by making everybody poor, which is exactly the model. If you go to Venezuela, it's the model. If you go to Cuba, the model. If you go to USSR, that was the model. The only people who had more were the ones breaking the system and capitalizing off of either the black market or those who were in charge who didn't have to live the reality of communism and Marxism. The goal of Marxism is unobtainable. You cannot have everybody be rich. You can have everybody be poor, though. If I gave all of us $1 million, how many of you would work again? You would, and you would. Okay? You'd have to. You know why? Because if nobody worked, you'd have nothing to spend your $1 million on. Okay? Just handing people a bunch of paper doesn't make them wealthy. That paper represents work. That's what money represents. And when you're given, quote, what's called free money, when they just turn on the printing press, you're just giving them paper. Okay? You're taking the value of my paper and you're giving it to somebody else who didn't work for it. But eventually, it all comes crashing down in production, because that's why communist countries fail, is because they fail to produce. Because when you don't have to work to get the money, you don't work, and when you don't work, there's less production, and the whole country has less. And that was one of the major problems in, that's one of the major problems in Korea. It's one of the major problems in Cuba, in Venezuela, is the major problem in the USSR, and in China, okay? If America does go down this road and it does embrace Marxism, which it is looking like it is doing every day, the Democratic Party, and this, I'm getting political on you, is making moves to not just embrace Marxism, but to enforce Marxism through executive orders and through court packing and through their political maneuvering in order to make sure that a certain political party, the Republicans, can never win again through different means, and we can go through that later, but even though this is not a political science class. Aristotle does say political science is the highest of all sciences, though. If they do that, America will go down a Marxist path. How do you enforce that? How do you get rid of people who are going to disagree with you? The same way the Marxists have always done. They've imprisoned them, re-educated them, and killed them. Because what is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires. I told my students in 2007 that America will radically change probably by the time they're adults, and it has. You are younger than my students were then, and you will be seeing probably the ushering in or the defending of the American values of natural law, the idea that rights come from God, that all men are created equal, right? Not equal of outcome, but equal in nature, and we're going to be talking about that today. You may see a civil war. You may see America's second civil war. It's pretty incredible, okay? And why will you see this, if not participate in it because of your age? Why is it? Because the specter of communism has not died. People still believe that communism can work. People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, people like Bernie Sanders, the President of the United States has embraced Marxist ideas. Liz
Warren?
Thank you. Alzheimer's kicking in. I won't even remember it. Look, there are major groups out there push this. The whole, who knows who the Squad is? It's a political action group. It's a group in the Democratic Party. It's a caucus. It's a group, okay? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of them, all right? She'd be considered the leader of them. And then you have Rashida Tlaib is another one. And it's like 5 young women who are right now probably the youngest members of Congress. And they're all women and they're all Marxists. Okay? and they really would like to see the destruction of the capitalistic system and the embracing of what they call socialism. Don't let the name socialism fool you, or liberalism fool you, okay? Liberalism in the old sense was personal liberty, personal responsibility, the idea that God has given you endowments with rights. That's the old type of liberalism. The liberalism of the Democratic Party is socialism, and socialism is based off of Marxism. Marxism is what communism is based off of, yes?
So like, I follow politics and everything, but I was asking out of curiosity, have they ever like claimed to be Marxist? Or
They don't use the word Marxist.
they just use something else?
They use the word progressive. The thing is, towards where are you progressing? And how do you, how do we classify it? We can call it any name you want. We can call it progressive. The communists called it progressives themselves back in the communist revolution. So this isn't a new term, although they don't come out and say we're communists. They don't say we're Marxists, but they do teach Marxist ideology. You don't have to call yourself, how often do I call myself a capitalist? Very rarely, but if you listen to my economics, you go, dude, you're a total capitalist. How often do I call myself how often do I call myself a Catholic? Very rarely, especially around here. But I am a Catholic. My teachings on social theory, on doctrine, on Christianity are all Catholic. Okay? I don't have to call myself it to be it. Okay? How often do you call yourself African? Not often? It doesn't make a difference what you call yourself. Okay, you are what you are. You're actually an American, right? You're not African. You're not a citizen of this country of Africa, are you? No. You don't have to call yourself it to be it. We can call it by any name you want. It is what it is. And that's where we're going to be. We're getting into metaphysics, the nature of what things are. Okay? And it's important for us to know that our ideas about the basics of reality will determine the outcome of our ethics and our politics. We're going to be talking about some stuff that you go, how is this stuff important to, you just brought up a bunch of politics and morality and Marxism and, macro stuff, big stuff. And then you just jump into this weird minutia, why is that a big deal? Because what you believe down here is what you will believe way out there, okay? We're going to just give a brief, 5 minutes on the end of Augustine, because I want some terms for you guys to know from him. But then after that, we're getting into metaphysics, which is much more subject matter rather than historical or personally. We're not going to be talking necessarily about one person. We're going to talk about the subject. So let's just dive right back into where we were with Augustine. He gave us 3 classes of goods. He called these, did I talk about this the other day? If I did, great, who cares? Do it again. Great goods, which we would call justice. Lesser goods. Lesser goods would be stuff like beauty and wealth. And then intermediate goods, right? Free will, which is necessary, but it is not sufficient for happiness. You have to have free will to have happiness, but just having free will does not make one happy, okay? Augustine talked about 4 things. Well, he talked about a lot of things, but these things I wanted us to close up with him just because we were talking about loves, how he felt that we should rightly love things. He considered vice that which harms one's soul. Okay? That which is vice. We'll talk about the different vices with, as we revisit Aristotle with Aquinas. Crime is that which harms others. If you're talking about a crime, you're talking about harming oneself. I mean, somebody else. If you're talking about a vice, you're harming yourself. The ingestion of pornography, you're harming yourself. The ingestion of hatred, you're harming yourself, but you could also harm others in that you could enact a crime upon them. And a crime does not necessarily mean that it is illegal, okay? Legality and criminality are two different things. Although in the legal terms, a crime is illegal, and they're broken into misdemeanors and felonies, but we're talking about morality here. Charity, that Greek word agape, A-G-A-P-E. So we call it love. Christians call it love. And that is the rightly ordered love. Remember that you love God as God. You love humans as humans. You love animals as they are and the world as it should be. You do not overlove something that is not deserving of it in that sense. You do not love a rock like you would love a puppy. You do not love a puppy like you love a human, and you do not love humans as though they are God. Humans do not come before God. God becomes, you rightly order your loves, okay? Cupidity is our final term, and then we're going to just get right into it. Cupidity is that thing, it's like Cupid, that little naked cherub that goes around slinging arrows into people. Cupidity is disordered love. That is, you're loving people like gods, or God, I should say, government as God or whatnot. You are placing things disorderly, or not loving God as he should be loved. So for Augustine, it was always rightly ordering your loves. And here we go. I want to remind us what I just opened with earlier, is that a change of mind will follow a change of heart. And I didn't say that earlier, but what I said is what I teach today will have an effect later. That is, what is today? A matter of academic speculation will begin tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires, right? But how do you change a mind? Now, I can come in here and teach you, and you guys can be open to what I say. I could say some things, and you could put a wall right up, okay? Because a lot of us are invested in certain ideas and certain groups of people who hold those ideas, right? And so if I come in here and start talking about building a wall, right? Are you Hispanic, sir? You may have some family members who are very pro-open border, right? Maybe. And I start saying, we got to keep all those Canadians out. Of course, I just threw you a wrench because you're like, oh, you're thinking southern border, right? You got to keep them all out, right? That doesn't matter if I were to say it, okay? But your psychological disposition will be to desire to believe something, because it fits with something in you, right? I say Black Lives Matter. A lot of people, you might go, why are you criticizing those guys? Well, I'm not criticizing the race. I'm criticizing the Marxist ideas that are funding, not just funding, but pushing that group. Antifa, anti-fascist. Well, who likes fascists? Well, unfortunately, the anti-fascist movement, Antifa, is a Marxist organization. They even walk around with a hammer and sickle on their shields that they go. Yes, Xavier.
So, just as a question for like the Black Lives Matter movement, so you're questioning the organization rather than the movement itself, pretty much.
Well, when people say Black Lives Matter, I say yes, of course they do. But I don't think that that's what the Black Lives Matter slogan is. The Black Lives Matter slogan is much deeper than that. It says, if somebody says, do you agree that Black Lives Matter? And I would say, do you mean by that statement that the black race has been targeted systematically by the American system and by policing in such a way that they've been treated unfairly and been hurt as a process and been held down by the system? That's a much broader statement than saying, do Black Lives Matter? Which the answer is, of course they do. But those are two different statements, right? But contained in that latter statement is a statement that's suggesting that there's a whole group of people that are a class of people that are being oppressed by a whole greater system currently, and that they need to rise up and throw off the bonds from that group of people, okay? Okay, that's where the Marxism comes. It's hidden in what they mean by the statement, okay? Now, not all black people are part of the Black Lives Matter movement, are they? In fact, some of them are quite like, we completely disagree with them, but not because they disagree that Black Lives Matter, which they agree that Black Lives Matter, because all humans are human and all humans, but people get really mad when you say that all lives matter. Don't they get really mad? Because then they're like, no, wait a minute. Until Black Lives Matter, then, no lives matter, right? Because they don't just, they're not talking about that narrow thing. They're talking about a much broader philosophical movement. And in that philosophical movement is the suggestion that there is a group of people that is currently oppressed by other people and by a whole system of people. And they are suggesting that our whole capitalistic system, our economic system, our whole social system, the way we do social justice, our whole moral system is targeting a particular group of people and needs to be overthrown and replaced by an egalitarian system, right, which produces not just equal opportunity, but equal outcomes. And that's Marxism. So you see the difference?
Even from a social justice standard?
Yeah. You can see how they use the slogan to mean something much broader than merely Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is 3 words. That's very hard to disagree with, right? Very hard. You'd have to be a darn right bigot to disagree with it. But if I said I disagree with Black Lives Matter, people go, oh my God, he's a bigot. You don't believe Black Lives Matter? Well, I don't believe in Marxism. I believe that we are equal, but not equal in outcome. That we all have equal rights, but not equal desires. We don't have equal abilities, okay? I'm not equal to a lot of people, okay? Across the spectrum, no matter what it is, okay? I'm better than some, not as good as others, okay? But I am equal in my humanity. And that's what we're going to get into here. What does it mean to be human, okay? I mean, we fought a war over the equal nature of all humans, right? We draw our battlegrounds morally over the nature of humanity, okay? How we should act towards one another, and even how we should govern ourselves. And so I disagree with the political system, which quite frankly has nothing to do with race, because it was held by the Bolsheviks, a bunch of white people, okay, in Russia. This stuff was written up in France by 2 white guys, okay? Just because it's finding its place in Antifa right now, which is not black, and in Black Lives Matter, which is not black. I mean, which is black, but you don't have to be black to be part of it. I don't think, right? No, I think there are a bunch of white people hanging out with that group too. It's the ideas I'm concerned with, not the people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, but you can see where you say the words, and all of a sudden somebody's like, "Wait a minute," because now they go, "We have pet ideas that we're going to hold on to," right? Now, imagine, let's just take an issue that's really near and dear to many women's hearts: abortion, right? You must hate women if you're pro-life. Some would argue, right? You're a misogynist, a woman hater. No, that's not really what it means. But what would it take to change a woman's heart who's pro-choice, rabidly pro-choice? Do I just show her pictures of aborted babies? Well, that may change her mind that, oh, I guess I am pregnant with a real human. But that may not change her mind, and probably will not change her hardened heart, that killing that baby is wrong. Okay? How do you change that? Is that an academic thing? It's partially academic. How do we get people to accept the academic? That's why children, it's so important. Education is such a big battleground now, and it's a major battle over what gets taught in the schools, because children go into school not knowing that their beliefs are being fought over, that their political ideas are being formed, and that they are literally the spoils of the academic war that's going on right now. that I am trying to win you back from an education system that went awry. Okay? That you have been your mind has been filled with anti-Christian, anti-God, anti-human stuff, anti-American stuff all your life if you've gone to the standard public schools. Now, by the way, no, if this is going through your mind, well, wow, that's a big thing for one guy. That's what this whole school's here for. That's why Christian schools emerged. It wasn't like, oh, hey, the public schools are doing such a great job. It has much more to do with that, okay? So, how do you win the mind? You first have to have fertile ground. How do you get fertile ground? After you've been hardened for so long, once the ground is so hard, it won't receive a seed. Academic seed. Now we can talk about the parable of the seeds that Jesus spoke of. But I tell you, there needs to be some tending of the soil academically. You have to have a consideration. For me to become a pro-lifer, I had to first become a Christian. I had to soften my heart to God's will. Okay? For me to soften my heart to God's will, I had to soften my heart to God, the idea that God existed. For me to soften my heart to the fact that God existed, I had to ask certain academic questions. Is it possible that God exists? And because I was raised to believe in God, which is good because that soil was fertile. My parents tended it to some degree, not to the best, but to some. And then I went through a really strong time of doubting. And because I saw it, because I wanted, it's very important to want God to exist for one, because that means you recognize the importance, the value of life with God and the absolute, worthlessness of life without God, And I came to that conclusion. One of my best friends has lost his faith, and that bothers me greatly. Because I go, man, my friend lives without hope, and I could see it in his attitude toward life. And he has no point from which to make rational decisions about morality and stuff like that. It's all just arbitrary to him. Can't say one thing's good or evil. You could just say, well, I prefer this, I don't prefer that. Why? Well, anyway, so the change of mind will often follow a change of heart. Okay, guys? If your heart is already open to ideas, you'll allow certain ideas to enter your mind. And as children, unfortunately, we're all too accepting of what our teachers say is authoritative. Okay, we got to remember that. Now, by the way, that's an invitation for you to be skeptical about what I say too, because just because I'm in a position of authority doesn't make me correct. It just means I have the microphone. Just because the news tells you it, it doesn't mean that what they say is correct. All right, so let's get down to what's some of the most, you're going to go, how on earth is what you're talking about right now relevant? I mean, I'm just going to go from all this really crazy stuff to this. Are you seriously talking about this? Okay, so here we're going to talk about metaphysics now. Metaphysics. 100 miles down the road is going to have profound effects, but right now you're not even going to be able to tell. Maybe you'll be able to tell. We're going to ask the question, what is the world? We're going to ask certain questions. These are some of the questions metaphysics is going to ask. What is the world? What is existence? What types of things exist? What does it mean to exist? In epistemology, we had to talk about what does it mean to know. This has to do with existence. I'll introduce a term to you here in a minute. I'll define it a little better. It's called ontology. O-N-tology. ontology. Ontology. It's theory of existence and things that exist. We could call it the world. Xavier, what's a world?
From a physical standpoint, or?
No, I didn't ask that.
I don't know what to say.
Somebody said, little kid asks you, what would you tell them? You don't have to tell me at a college level, just tell me basically what's the world. You know what the word is, world, right?
Yeah.
What does it refer to?
Place that everyone stays at. I wouldn't say everyone, but like.
It's a place.
It's a place.
It's a place. Physical thing?
Yeah.
Are all places physical?
No.
No? Can you name a non-physical place?
Um,
A location that is not physical. Yeah, it's a pretty deep question, isn't it? Pretty simple question, but a deep one at that, right? Something we just take for granted. Something you think we would have learned at age 5 when you said, what does the world mean? You started using the word, right? How about you?
I'd say it's a planet that we live
The
on.
planet, Earth. After all, when you when you were in K through 12, you always had that big map of, what was it called? The world, right? And it was really just synonymous with Earth, correct? Earth is a world, but, well, that would make the world a very small place. I mean, Earth is pretty big, but it'd make it a pretty small place, considering there's a lot more going on out there than just Earth. Would you agree? You got anything for me in the back? I'm going to offer up a solution to this. The world will say, and this would be a test question, will be probably, the world is everything that exists. Everything that exists. Now, that may include, obviously, God and everything He's created. Okay? Now, imagine God doesn't exist. Well, then obviously you wouldn't have Him. Some would say it's just a universe. I say just the universe. You go, well, the universe is pretty big. Isn't the universe? Some people say the universe is all that exists, and that would constitute the world. Well, people would argue, that's not all that exists, and therefore the world is much bigger than your puny little universe, okay? And they don't just mean bigger in size as far as, I'm talking metaphorically bigger, not, or grander in scope, not just geographically bigger, okay? The world, let's see if I have my chalk on. One of the things we like to do in metaphysics and in ontology is we like to categorize things. All right? We like to break things up. And as J.P. Moreland said, he probably quoted it from somebody else, metaphysics is carving the world up at its joints. Test question. Metaphysics is carving the world up at its joints. It's basically categorizing things. What kinds of things? The things that exist, of course. Takes the world and asks what it is and breaks it into its parts. Why do I say cutting it up at its joints? Because you don't cut a turkey in the middle of the leg, you cut it up at the joints. Right? That'd be a weird turkey. I cut it right here. So in metaphysics, that's a C. We want to take the world and put it into 3 parts. Not really 3 parts, 3 views at this point. Okay, we're just going to give you 3 major views. 3 options. There are those who believe that the world is nothing more than physical parts and wholes, that everything that exists is physical. If it is not physical, it does not exist. These people are called naturalists. Some people call themselves naturalists, and what they mean is they're really into nature. That is not what is meant. That is not what is meant in philosophy. In philosophy, specifically metaphysics, a naturalist is somebody who believes that the world, which the world means everything that exists, that the world is physical. There's another group of people, means the same thing, another name I should say, physicalists. So if you hear me say physicalism or naturalist, I will tend to mean the same thing. A person that believes that everything that exists is physical. And this belief that if everything is physical, then no non-physical things exist. Can God exist if naturalism is true?
No.
No. Why can God not exist? Because God is not a physical thing. And if the only things that do exist are physical, and God is non-physical, it follows necessarily that God does not exist. So you can see right away how this may impact how we live our lives, this one view alone. You could also reflect back on your K through 12 years and ask the question, how many times did they assume this position in their classrooms? Do you hear what I'm saying? How many times did they assume naturalism in the classroom? It's just presumed to be the case. It is not defended, it is asserted. It's not even asserted in the sense where everything exists. It's assumed. You should already, they get you thinking that way. Another view states that nothing is physical, that the physical world does not exist. Remember Plato, I'm not saying Plato believed that the physical world didn't exist, but there was the world of ideas which we spoke about. This thing that is higher than the physical realm. These are the idealists. Everything is non-physical. See the hand you have? Is it physical? According to the idealists, it is not. Okay? And we're gonna ask certain questions about that to get you. You might go, oh my God, at the end of this, you might go, oh, yeah, you're right. The physical world might be an illusion. Nice hair in my mouth. Or thread or something. Stuck there by my mask. All right. There's a third option called realism. And realism holds that the world is both physical and non-physical. That there are components of the world that are physical for sure, like your hands, your body, this table, this podium, this piece of chalk. And there are non-physical parts of the world, of which we can speak. You talk about them all the time, but you never think that they are non-physical because you just don't pay attention to them. Again, what I'm teaching you today will have profound effects on all that grander stuff I talked about earlier. Right? If one determines that the world is nothing more than physical, they will not believe in God, they will not believe in God's will, they will not believe in the morality of God, and thus they will not act as though God exists. On the other hand, if you do believe that God exists, you must also believe in non-physical reality. If you believe in non-physical reality, yeah, you will act accordingly. Ultimately, your views of how you treat humanity and other things will differ depending on how you believe these basic questions to be answered. And that's why I throw that big, grand stuff out at you, to show how important this small stuff is, because it has such a profound effect. And by the way, you've been abused by this being ignored K through 12. You've been abused in the sense that some of these views have been presupposed and you have not even had a good defense of them. Okay? There's a quote by a guy from the, I think it's Francis Potter, I think it was, said, what can the 1 day a week for 1 hour at a time Sunday school do to stem the tide of an all-day program 5 days a week of secular humanism? He was mocking, Sunday school, saying kids, barely a fraction of the kids even go to Sunday school. Those who do go maybe an hour a week. And what's that going to do? To stem the tide of an all-day program 5 days a week. We got your kids all this time, and we're teaching them. Your 1 hour is not going to do a thing, okay? And that becomes problematic. So, when we talk about physicalism, naturalism, we're talking about things, and there's this belief that they are all physical. Well, let's start talking about what it means to be physical. When we start categorizing things, we start categorizing things into objects and their properties. Objects and their properties. Oops. That's a J. This is a podium. This is the object. This podium has properties. The podium has color. What is the color, Noah?
Brown.
Is brown the podium?
No.
Is the podium brown?
Yes.
Interesting. This podium has shape.
Yes.
And it's probably made up of different shapes, but give me the shape-ish.
Like square, rhombus.
Square, rhombus, cube-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I don't know what we'd call it, okay? But whatever it is, it has that shape. Does the shape have the desk or the podium? No. It's asymmetrical. You see that? Because this shape could be somewhere else. Would you agree?
Yes.
Would you agree that the color could be somewhere else?
Oh, yes, I agree.
Okay. Can the desk be somewhere else? I mean, the podium be somewhere else.
It could be.
I can move it, but can it be here and somewhere else at the same time?
No.
Can the color be somewhere else at the same time?
No.
The color cannot be.
Oh wait, yeah, okay.
Can the shape be the same, different place at the same time?
Yeah.
Are you getting all that, Xavier? Is this heavy duty stuff? You're going, it sounds pretty dang simple, isn't it? We should have been taught this in 3rd grade, correct? Yet it'll blow your mind as a college student now. Can physical things be in more than one place at a time, Noah?
Yes.
Can your hand be in more than one place at a time?
No, it can't be.
Because your hand is
Itself, like
physical.
physical.
Can that case you have in your hand be in more than one place?
No.
What color is the case?
Black.
Black. Can blackness be in more than one place at a time?
Yes.
Can you place that black case on the desk in front of you and also place it in the back at the same time?
No.
Can there be black up front with that case and black in the back also? Turn around and look in the back of the room. Can you see black back there? Is there blackness back there?
No.
There's no blackness back there?
Well, yeah, there is.
Why do you keep changing on me?
Because I just realized it was on the windows.
On the windows? You could also see it under the desk. Look at the front of the desks.
Oh.
Those are called privacy screens. You know why those exist?
Oh, these?
No, the little thing in front of you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, make sure I get back to the screen here. Those are called privacy screens. What color are the privacy screens?
Black.
Black. Why do we have privacy screens?
Privacy.
Because young ladies wear skirts and it's a very smart thing. So the professor doesn't have to sit up here going, teaching like this, so he doesn't have to feel uncomfortable when young ladies wear skirts.
I didn't know that.
I learned it from my wife. I didn't know it either until she bought a privacy screen for her desk. I went, oh yeah, hey, that makes a whole lot of sense. That is cool. Yeah. Well, anyway, good idea, especially when you got stadium seating.
Yeah.
Okay, and the stadium goes up, and then you're like. Nonetheless, what color are these privacy screens?
Black.
Black. Do you know what shape they are?
Square.
Rectangular, but yes, okay, thank you. We'll go with that. Can the blackness be in more than one place at a time?
Yeah.
Can the squareness or rectangularity be in more than one place at a time?
Yeah.
Yes. Can physical things be in more than one place at a time?
No.
Can rectangularity be in more than one place at a time?
Yes.
Interesting. So if physical things cannot be in more than one place at a time, but rectangularity can be in more than one place at a time, does rectangularity exist?
Yes, it exists.
So we have something that exists that could be in more than one place at a time. Would you agree? Shapes, colors. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we also call them, I kept doing this. Okay, that's a sound, but the sound is the result of this thing being solid, solidity, hard, right? Okay, would you say this hardness can be over there too?
Yeah.
But this can't be over there, but the hardness can.
Yeah.
These are called properties. I'm giving you things called properties. They are objects and they're properties. The object is a podium. The property is brownness. The property is, cubicle. The property is solidity. We could also have the property of weight, height. Of course, that might be going with its size too, or shape, whatever. No, shape and size are two different things. Because you could have a square that's 3 feet high, and you could have 3 feetness without it being a square, and you could also have a square that's not 3 feet high. Anyway, so what we have is examples of objects that are physical. Not all objects are physical, but in this case, I've given you examples of physical objects. And I've given you examples of non-physical properties. These things are abstract. They are non-physical. You recognize squareness apart from that which exemplifies it. This is an actual square, I think. See that? And we can you recognize what a square is independently of this physical object. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. I've probably just given you your first defense of non-physical reality. Has anybody ever defended non-physical reality in such a way to you before this? No. Everything was presumed to be physical up to this point, probably K through 12, I suggest, right? Unless you went to a private school that particularly espouses religious beliefs. So you can see why atheists don't want your children going to Christian or Jewish or Muslim private schools, right? They can presume things, and they go left unchallenged. If one believes such things exist, non-physical reality, that are abstract and can be in more than one place at a time, you are called these are called universals, and you'll write this down. You're a realist. You're a metaphysical realist in that you believe that universals exist. That is, a universal is a multiply exemplifiable abstract entity. And I shall say that again. Multiply, just spelled like multiply. Exemplifiable, E-X-E-M, pliable, P-L-I, fiable, F-I-A-B-L-E. Multiply exemplifiable, abstract entity. If you think this is going to be on the test, you would be correct. Multiply exemplifiable abstract entity. Are we out of time? Yeah, I guess we are. And that, if you deny that these things exist, you are a nominalist. Guys, this doesn't, I'm just going to end it right here, but I'm going to tell you why this is important, because universals do not only apply to colors, to sizes, shapes, and the like, but they also apply to moral properties. moral claims. So Xavier, you can see where we would be going with this. If you deny universals, you'd also have to deny moral universal claims, right? All humans have the right to life would be a universal claim, right? And so if universals don't exist, well, not all humans have that right then. Okay? So you can see how powerful this will be down the road. As simple as this is going to get a lot. You're getting, when I see you on Wednesday, if I hope for those of you who are here, that'll be you, Noah. It's just going to get better. It's going to get a lot more powerful. So you guys, we're done. You can go, but I would suggest you come back on Wednesday because being here is always better than not. You like being here